Well, first of all, we'd like to say good morning to everyone. We're just glad to see everyone out. Today, we want to give you some news on the onset. We realized that we're supposed to be talking about the neutral zone today. Today, we're going to give you a beginning and lead you to the day of the neutral zone. And if you would mark your calendar, which Paula's going to tell you a little bit more about it in a minute, April 24th. We'll do that at that time, and I'm not going to take all the thunder, so I'm going to let Paula do that. But I want to introduce you to Paula Fontenot. She is our newest member at Genealogy. Several of you have already met her, worked with her. She's very capable, and today she's going to talk to us about ethnic groups of Louisiana. Immediately after Paula, we're going to come back and we're going to share some helpful hints about the 1940 census, which came out yesterday. Many of you knew about it, and I'm hoping that you've tried as we've tried, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And if we, in the middle, if you will, if immediately when Paula's done, if you have questions and answers, for questions, I'm sorry, why don't you we'll just ask them, and we'll have time enough for questions and answers for each time. So without that, we're going to turn right over to Paula.
Hello. Today, in honor of the bicentennial of Louisiana statehood, we're going to talk about the ethnic groups of Louisiana and see what groups have come together to make Louisiana what it is today and give it a very unique cultural heritage. Okay, so who were the first inhabitants of Louisiana? The first group were the state's original indigenous inhabitants. Today, the state of Louisiana is home to the third largest American Indian population in the eastern United States. And this is just behind North Carolina and Arkansas. The map to the right shows the locations of 6 of Louisiana's Native American groups. It shows the 4 federally recognized tribes. That's the Chitimacha, the Coshada, the Jenna Band of Choctaws, and the Tunica Biloxis. The 2 state-recognized tribes are the United Homa Nation and the Attakapaw Ishak, and they are the tribe on whose lands we presently live. There's also 15 American Indian nations that currently maintain a presence in the state of Louisiana. The Indian tribes of Louisiana have influenced many aspects of Louisiana's cultural heritage. This includes through their language. Many of our parishes, rivers, and bayous bear Native American names. Some of these include the parishes of Avoyelles, Caddo, Calcasieu, Tangipahoa, Washita, Tensas, and Natchitoches Parish. Some of the rivers and bayous include the Atchafalaya, the Mermentau, and the Calcasieu. Even the word bayou is derived from a Choctaw word. And also, as y'all know, the state capital is Baton Rouge is derived from a Muskegon word for red stick. Louisiana also learned of Indian foods and how to harvest them from the woods and waters of the region. This includes alligators, shellfish, all sorts of fish, wildfowl, water birds, frog legs, and of course crawfish. Also their knowledge of plants, animals, medicine, folklore, and arts and crafts. The next group are the French, and Louisiana has had a very long and varied history of France. Beginning in 1682 when La Salle claimed Louisiana for France. The majority of French settlers came between 1765 and 1875. French immigration to Louisiana has consisted of 4 main groups. The first group were the French settlers and military men who came directly from France to Louisiana in the first half of the 18th century. In 1765, the most famous and widely known group was the Acadians, and they began their migration to Louisiana. The third group were French immigrants from the Caribbean, and the fourth group were political and social refugees from Alsace and Lorraine after the Franco-Prussian War. So what is the cultural heritage from the French? They left their French language. This has influenced Louisiana's Creole French and Cajun French. They left their French surnames. 25% of the state population has some sort of French ancestry. They left their place names: New Orleans, Lafayette, Abbeville, LaSalle Parish, Terrebonne Parish, and of course the state of Louisiana, which was named in honor of Louis XIV. They left the Roman Catholic religion, their laws, legal system. They left their influence on the music, Creole and Cajun music. So they've had quite an influence. This brings us to another group of immigrants to Louisiana, the Spanish. Before the French, there had been some Spanish explorers in the area. For example, Hernando de Soto in 1541. The Spanish governed Louisiana from, as you can see up there, 1763. They acquired Louisiana from France at the end of the French and Indian War, and they ruled it until 1803. Louisiana culture has been influenced by the Spanish. It's reflected in its cuisine and also in its surnames, its language, laws, customs, and race relations. For example, the buildings in the French Quarter, did y'all know that those are not French architecture? It's actually Spanish colonial architecture. Also, the Spanish strengthened the Catholic religion in Louisiana. There is one unique population of Spanish settlers. They are in St. Bernard Parish. They're called the Islenos. They're called that to distinguish them from mainland Spanish settlers. They are descended from Canary Islanders that settled the area in the late 1770s. They continue to retain their archaic Spanish dialect, and they celebrate their culture every year in a festival called the Islenos Festival. And then after the Spanish relinquished control back to France, Napoleon sold Louisiana to the English. So with the English, there's never going to be a widespread migration to Louisiana. They didn't all come at one time. There's a kind of a steady trickle of immigrants. So directly after the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, Americans arrived and settled in Louisiana, primarily in New Orleans. These were mainly merchants and professionals who were seeking to capitalize on New Orleans' growing commerce and industry. Between the 1820s and the 1860s, groups of Scottish and Irish immigrants moved into Louisiana from neighboring states, like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. Also during this time period, during the 1940s, there's an influx of Irish immigrants because they were fleeing the Irish potato famine. During the late 19th century, there's immigration from the Midwest. These people helped establish the rice industry. And the last group of immigrants been in recent years to work in the oil industry. There's two main groups of African immigrants to Louisiana. The first group were brought here against their will to Louisiana as slaves from West Africa. In fact, 2/3 of the people, the African slaves who arrived before 1730, were from the Senegambia region of West Africa. That's shown on the map right there. Later, after the United States banned the slave trade, many African Americans were transported to Louisiana from the East Coast, especially from Virginia and the Carolinas. The African slaves brought with them the knowledge of how to grow crops such as rice, okra, black-eyed peas, and others. They also brought with them the idea of one-pot cooking. They influenced the language. For example, okra and gumbo are African words. They brought with them their music, which would later influence styles like jazz, blues, and zydeco. Now, the second group of Africans came from the Caribbean after the Haitian Revolution in 1791 and 1804. This included many free people of color. Most of these Africans from the Caribbean were originally from what is now the Republic of Benin and Nigeria. The Haitians brought with them something called shotgun houses, which I'm sure y'all have heard of, and voodoo. Free people of color dominated many of the building trades in New Orleans. They were often highly educated, many owned cattle and land, and a significant population settled in the Attakapas and Opelousas regions. Oops. It's getting away from me. The Germans, this is the next group. German immigrants came to Louisiana during two separate migrations during the 18th and 19th century. The first wave of German settlers was primarily agricultural. These Germans were peasant farmers who came to Louisiana fleeing the devastation of wars, famine, and religious persecution. They settled in the area now known as the German Coast, in St. James and St. Charles parishes. The first German settlers experienced difficult sea crossing, diseases, and hurricanes. And though they endured many hardships initially, German communities became some of the most stable and successful settlements in colonial Louisiana, and probably the sole reason the French didn't starve. The Germans of the second migration came to Louisiana for better economic opportunities. This is during the 19th century. They were from the urban and middle class of society. Their primary settlement was in New Orleans, though there was a smaller immigration to Roberts Cove, which is north of Rheims. The Germans in New Orleans were very successful in establishing their own businesses, churches, and even several German-language newspapers. Those Germans in Roberts Cove became very successful rice farmers. The next group is the Italians. And the Italians immigrated in large numbers to Louisiana during the early 20th century in search of a better quality of life, leaving Italy because of famine and poverty. While some Italians had immigrated to Louisiana before the 20th century, the bulk of immigrants came between 1898 and 1929, and they amounted to nearly 70,000 immigrants. And they came to the port of New Orleans. They settled in New Orleans, in the sugar parishes of South Louisiana, and in Tangipahoa Parish. These new immigrants also became successful farmers, many of them as strawberry farmers, merchants who were primarily focused in the food industry, and landowners. They introduced both their culture and cuisine to Louisiana. Now, the Lebanese, they immigrated to America from Greater Syria. That's shown there on the map. That includes parts of modern-day Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and the western quarter of Jordan. And they immigrated primarily during the 1880s and to 1920s. 60,000 came to the U.S. during those years, 15,000 to the southern states. There was also a later migration after the 1940s, and that was because of the Lebanese Civil War, though there wasn't quite as many immigrating during those years as there were during the earlier years. They were fleeing famine, devastation caused by World War I, also French occupation of Lebanon, and they were trying to find a better quality of living. Many faced difficulties in getting to the U.S. because the U.S. had strict quota restrictions, and many in the U.S. weren't friendly to Lebanon sending immigrants. In Louisiana, there's two places that have sizable populations. There are Lake Charles and Lafayette. There's also populations in Shreveport and Alexandria. Generally, the Lebanese immigrants came, and they spread out along the railroads. Many were peddlers to begin with, opening up businesses. Their primary language was French and Arabic. This is why they chose Louisiana, because Louisiana has a strong French heritage. And many of them had difficulties in learning English. Their religion was, they were of the Maronite religion, which is a very old Christian religion. Many of them joined the Episcopal Church here in Lake Charles, because the nearest Orthodox church, which was the closest to their religion, was in Beaumont. Though they did have a traveling preacher who came and did baptisms and marriages here in Lake Charles for them. The Lake area Lebanese culture is still strong, and their traditional foods and customs have persisted among their descendants. And this is a picture here of one of the descendants of Lebanese immigrants, Dr. Michael DeBakey. Now there's going to be a lot of immigrant groups that we won't cover today, but this is a run-through of some of the smaller and more recent immigrant groups. This is going to include the Vietnamese and other Asian groups. 25,000 Vietnamese are in the state today. That is approximately 44% of all Asian peoples in Louisiana. They mostly settled in New Orleans and in New Orleans Parish and Jefferson Parish. There's also small populations in many other Louisiana parishes, but those have the largest concentrations. Immigration of Vietnamese began after the fall of Saigon in South Vietnam in 1975. The Catholic Diocese of Louisiana were in charge of settling them, so generally they chose to settle them in areas that had large Catholic populations, like Abbeville and Vermilionville has a large population. Many Vietnamese found jobs in shrimping and fishing industries and also in the oil industry. The next group, the Eastern Europeans, this is going to include the Hungarians, Czechs, and Croatians. Beginning in the 1820s, Croatians settled in New Orleans and then moved south to Plaquemine and St. Bernard parishes. Many became fishermen, oystermen, and trappers, and others opened restaurants and boarding houses. The Hungarians and the Greeks also settled in and around New Orleans. And did you know that the first significant settlement of Greeks in the entire United States was in New Orleans during the 1850s? And they were so successful that by 1866, the community had their own Greek consulate, and they had the first Greek Orthodox church in the United States, in New Orleans. The Czech, they came to Louisiana beginning in the 1850s, and they came to New Orleans and established their own quarter known as Bohemia, or Little Bohemia. They later established two towns, which are a few miles east of Alexandria, Labousse and Colon, in 1914. It was an attempt to create a Czech community for their families. And that's going to wrap up the ethnic groups. This map right here shows a breakdown of where they settled, if you weren't able to keep up with me.
You ready for a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Comment?
Comment, yes.
Your very first slide, in which you said 1785 came directly from France, is true. But most of those people were Acadians because they had been deported back to France, didn't fit in there, and they came to Louisiana in 1785.
Let's see what I'm saying on this first slide. Peak years of immigration between those years, 1765 and 1875. So, and the Acadians came beginning in actually the fall of
But that's the ones that came
1764.
direct.
Yes.
When they deported them, they spread
They went
out,
all over.
and then they wandered back toward Louisiana.
Yes. What happened was a lot of the Acadians who did come here initially, they wrote letters to their friends and family who had settled, some in Spain, some in Maine, other eastern coast states, telling them that this was a good place to live and to come join them. So, any other questions or comments? Okay. And as we told y'all, the neutral zone, the program will be April 24th. So if you have any questions about that, you just have to save it for the 24th. And,
What is that neutral zone? What are you talking about?
well, there's a poster back there. The neutral zone, whenever Louisiana became a state, there's this area, which includes Calcasieu Parish, that was not part of the original statehood. It was in Spain and America were fighting over who owned this area. And because they could not settle where the border was, they just decided to leave it as neutral ground. So it kind of becomes a haven for outlaws and criminals. And
That's, had it made, what is about April 24th?
April 24th,
Right here in this room.
right
I have
here.
a question before you move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to the parishes you named
Mhm.
early on in your presentation. I might have missed it, but I didn't hear Acadia Parish.
I didn't name all of them. There was a list that was, I just named
Because Acadia
some.
Parish, to me, is where there's a lot of Cajuns that settled.
Oh, yes.
French heritage, relative to other places. I mean, I just wondering about that.
Yes. I didn't name all the parishes. I just named some. One other thing, there's also an exhibit coming soon. It should be around the time of the presentation on the neutral zone. It's going to be on the bicentennial of Louisiana's statehood, and it'll be in this room.
We realized, like Paula said before she sits down, that we could not really cover every ethnic group. But it was to give you an overview, and we're hoping that this presentation will help lead you toward the area that our supervisor, Linda Gill, will talk about, the neutral zone. And I failed to in the beginning when I introduced Paula. Look, we were both nervous this morning, filling in for this presentation. But Paula is Linda's assistant, okay, here at the Genealogy Library, and we're very happy to have all of us here together. We're working together. So please, don't be shy about your questions, because if we do not know the answer at this time, we will find out and get back with you. We've done that too. So we're going to take about another 10, 15 minutes, and we're going to just share some helpful hints for you for the 1940 census. And then we're going to move on. As we stated earlier, most of you already know the census came out on yesterday. And I often say, and if you've been coming here at Genealogy, you've been handed a handout of how to get started. And in your how to get started, we have a sheet that tells you every question that is asked on the different censuses. So 1940 census is out. And I don't know about those of you who have tried at home, but we left our computers up here last night, hoping that we had images this morning, and we still did not. But because of the influx going into one place, and that is at NARA, which is the National Archives and Records Administration, which we will give you more information about that. That is the only place right now that you can receive the 1940 census. We have handouts for you here so that you will be able to see the questions. It's a 2-page deal. And then we have handouts on the other table for you to take home. And we're going to talk a little bit about that sheet in a second, okay? So, why 1940 is just being released? How many of us know that it has not been released because of the Privacy Act? Every 72 years. So we're in what? 2012. So 2012 census will not be released until 72 years after 2012. Okay, so I won't be here. I know, most of us here. So what we're saying to you, because of the Privacy Act, okay, and all censuses is where? With the federal government and at the National Archives. National Archives and Records Administration. So if you hear me say NARA, that's what I'm talking about, National Archives and Records Administration. So here, I had to put us in. This is our homepage. And so what we've done on our homepage, we put the available census, we gave you the date, and you may select that particular site where it says 1940 census. And you should be, and immediately when you go there, we'll go to that page because I made you captions so that you can see what takes place. I just didn't get to the end result. Notice the spotlight on the left-hand side of the page, the website spotlight, all up until December for sure. We should have that up because we will not have the actual 1940 census in our building here until December, okay? Meaning we want it on microfilm, okay? But you still have access to it, and we can help you with that. We have PCs available, and we have staff here that We're paid staff and we're here to assist you, okay? On the next two lines, I want you to note what you will need to know how to look at the 1940 census. There is no index. That news hit me like a ton of bricks. No index as of right now. Last night, those who wanted to volunteer to index, that began last night through Family Search and other places, NARA. So you know everything in Salt Lake City, the Mormons, their goal is to make everything free. Okay, so they have volunteer indexers, and you can be one too. Go to their site and find out about it if you're interested. Okay, so the first one I have says the ED Finder. This is your enumeration district. This is what you need to know where they were. Do you know where your ancestors were that you're looking for? Where were they for 1940? Just in case you do not, then when you select that site, Stephen Morse, that site will help you. He gave 2 sites, and he's been very helpful with the 1930, and I know he will for 40. The one immediately, which is the third, that one will be a ED census map, because some people, you might not know the exact street, but you have an idea. So his maps can help you get to your area, your state, your county or parish, and exactly your city, okay? The other portion, and I'm just highlighting the page simply because, remember, we still have Ancestry.com. It is on there, 1940, but when you select it, it sends you straight back to NARA, and I wanted you to know that. Heritage Quest, the library still has Heritage Quest here for you inside the library. And for those of you that are Calcasieu Parish residents, you still can have Heritage Quest at home with your library card, okay? So if you do not have a library card, we encourage you, whether you're a Calcasieu Parish citizen or not, come to the desk and talk to us. Okay, so when you select that very first highlighted portion that you saw from the web, this is what you see. This is what you will see. And it kind of talks a little bit about finding the census and the maps and the enumeration district and how to browse each image, how to share, save, and download. But the word I was mostly looking for was getting started. That's probably, so I'm trying to get it straight to you. So once I did that, what happens, I went straight to this page. It led me to this page. So if you look at the top right, icons are archives.gov, 1940, home, getting started in census search. This is what it gave me. So I wanted you to know I put in Louisiana, I put in a county, which is here is parish, St. Landry. I don't know why, I just thought I would. I selected Eunice for the city, more so because my parents are there. And then I selected search, because I didn't even try to go by enumeration district yet. I just told it to do a search because I want to make sure that you get to see a little bit of everything that it does. So here, I had to go back to Stephen Morse, who I told you about. This is the sheet you will see for enumeration district finder. If you don't know your enumeration district, and I notice I selected Mississippi and I didn't select nothing else. I just highlighted the page because I wanted you to see what this Census ED Finder would look like. You can put in a state, you can put in a parish, a county, and a city, and get the numbers to get to that census page, that census image. You do know census, one census page has 2 sheets, a A and a B, okay? Here, I did that, and guess what I got? This, and I wanted you to see. So I got the enumerate. Everybody who works in St. Landry know the ED number for St. Landry is 49. But the city and the area, each one have a different number. So it's either 4935, 4936. These are different areas of the city. Could have been Eunice, could have been Chautauqua, you know, different places. And I wanted you to see what you would get. And you say, well, what is this gonna lead me to? Once you select, and I selected 4935, I thought I was going to Eunice, and it never pulled up, but I will show you what it did pull up. Okay, toward the end. Okay, so then I got vexed with that. So I went on to the maps, because I said, okay, maps are much easier to load. I did the same thing, Louisiana, St. Landry, Eunice. And of course, that's the second line on the home page. I gave you the three. One to get to the census that said get started, the maps, and the ED. So this is what I got. I know it's small, I had to make it small so you can see, but when it allowed me to zoom in, and I was able to see the names of the streets and numbers on the streets, okay? So it's gonna take you some little homework, but we're here. I keep trying to remind you of that. We're here to assist you, and we'll be happy to assist you as best we can, okay? So this is that ED map. That was the best I could get for Eunice. Now, for the 1940 census, and yes, there are handouts there on the table. Please feel free to take one. When you take one sheet, you'll notice there's front and back. There's a lot on, now, if you've been here before, like we said, from 1790 to 2000, we always have this sheet in your handout of how to get started. So in 1940, the questions that were asked, and you can, I know you can hardly see that on the form. That's why I wanted you to take it home. We enlarged the copy so you can have it. So you can take a look at it and kind of look and see where you would. And also on one of the handouts that you're going to take home, once you select that, you can get a fill-in copy. So if you're on the census, and rather than you having to copy that census, you might just want to type in your information, and all you have to do is print it. It won't save, but it will print. Okay? It's an Adobe thing. All righty. So on the 1940, of course, they ask you about your address and whether your home was owned or rented, and value, and sex, and race, and age, marital status, school attendance. But there are some things in here that was very interesting for us. How many of you will remember the location of your residence 5 years ago? And that's one of the questions they ask. So if you do not get a state census, if Louisiana, let's say you're working in Louisiana, and Louisiana doesn't have a state census for 35, and all they have is the 40 census, and they ask on the 40 census, where were you 5 years ago? Who would love to have that? Somebody working on their family would love to know, well, where were you 5 years ago that I didn't know anything about? The other thing was interesting, working, occupation. It was something else. On the second page, which I'm going to show you the second page, on your handout also, it gave you all these signs and symbols, and it was so small. And y'all see me going on and off with my glasses. So what we did on your handout, you will have this sheet, and it's on the table over there, and on the back we made sure that we covered all of it so we can all read it together. And I think it took time and went through race. This time, not only did we have the white, Negro, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Hindu, and Korean. So all of that was in the race column, and I thought this was going to be very interesting to somebody. They were very specific about how they asked about age. They wanted your exact age at last birthday, not your present. And I said, wow, that might have had someone stop and think, oh, okay. All right, and so that would be more accurate per se. Citizenship. They broke it down into 4 categories. Citizenship of the foreign-born, naturalized, naturalized having first papers, and that was PA means. The AL is alien, and the AMCIT is American citizen born abroad. So see, the 1940 census has a lot of wonderful information. I just hope that they answered it all. And for the military, those that were in the military, I said, ooh, somebody's gonna love this. Though they gave you letters, alphabets, World War, Spanish-American War, Philippine, Insurrection or Boxer Rebellion, Spanish-American War, and World War, regular establishment or peacetime service, and then it says other war or expedition. So, you know, and I just covered a little bit. There's a lot on foreign-born, there's a lot on class of worker, education, and I thought all of this was very interesting to share today. So I know I kind of put it all, those are a lot of questions that they asked, but if you have a how to get started form, and if you don't, we'll share with you to tell you everything that's on the 1940 word for word, so you don't have to ask us again. Underneath that, before the map, I really wanted that Eunice area, but this is the way they gave it to me in written form. Somebody asked me earlier about, is there anything written? And I thought this was helpful. Let you know that in 1940, ED 49 and 32, you can read this, and your first one thing you'll say, okay, no, they wasn't outside of Washington town. No, maybe, well, maybe they was in this Bayou Karen. No. And then maybe say, oh, look, ED 49-35, yeah, they were by this Ward 6, Unistown, bounded by, and that's supposed to be North Town limits, East Town limits, and Laurel Avenue. I know these streets. So that was interesting, and I thought that might be helpful for you for the 1940 census, looking at this description before you actually look at the sheet. But most of you who come in, you want the census sheet and let me go. So that's our job. We want to make sure you get what you want and you need as quickly as we can find it. So here's the bad news. This is what I got for my all night. I had to go up and tell Robert I did it, and this is what I got. He said, are you satisfied? I'm like, no. But it's not anything that the computers are doing. It is the influx of everybody in the world going to one place, and that is NARA, National Archives and Records Administration, and trying to see one image. I just want to see one image of the 1940. And so that is our way of, I'm sorry?
I was supposed to be doing the transcribing with the Mormon Church.
Yes.
And they told us in the messages, they only have 5 states.
I know, there are only 5 states working.
They can't even get it, I'm sure.
Yes.
It's going to take, it's going to take several days to get the whole thing in.
Yes, that's one thing. How many of you besides Ms. Dot really volunteer indexing? Have you? I thought so, Ms. Georgia does. Okay, it is a very interesting area. Jeannie does here also. I try to every blue moon, but I'm caught up in other things, and so I can't stop and just sit and type. I'm not that person. But it is very interesting, and Ms. Dodd is right. They only said they released 5 states, and guess what? Louisiana wasn't one. I was like, oh, wow. Have a heart. I live in Louisiana. But keep an eye on, and then this is just, again, we're giving you helpful hints. Keep an eye on FamilySearch.org. Keep an eye on Ancestry.com. If you do not have it at home, you can visit what? Any branch of the Calcasieu Parish Library, but you can come see us at Genealogy because we love to help. And then you will be able to just kind of keep an eye and see what's coming up. Now, don't count Heritage Quest out, because the forms that come up on Heritage Quest, they're so much more printable and invisible for you to see, very distinct. It's such a clear copy. So I hope they don't get discouraged and go out of business simply because everybody else is trying to get it all in a hurry. As you heard Ms. Dot say, 5 states. How many states we have? We'll be at this for a minute. But we're going to go at it, and we're going to do our best here to help you get the census sheets that you want. So just about the 1940, are there any other questions? Are there comment?
They want to index. I was telling, I saw the city, but you don't index, you don't write type all that. All you have to type is just that top part.
Yes. And that's, okay, and let me comment on that. One thing,
You don't have to, when you index it, you don't type all this stuff in.
Yeah.
Only the first identifying information. Then the person looks at the index and goes to the image. So it's not.
and it's not. Yeah. Yeah, true. And at first, I thought that was a bad thing by them just indexing just the first portion. And I'm like, well, how are they going to know about the rest? So we have to think about those things, future genealogists coming behind me. My grandson is interested. How many of us can say, I've got 5 or 6 of them that want to do genealogy afterwards. So, we're kind of meticulous as those of us who are researchers and documenters. And so just bear all of this in mind. This is only a portion of what we could say a little bit about the 1940. As we go into it more, we plan to share more with you. So we just hope that we've said something this morning that will kind of prick your hearts for the 1940. Also for the ethnic groups for this morning, we just could not let this day go by without seeing your faces today. So if you guys have any other questions for Paula and myself, come on, Paula, about anything, please, April 24th, put that down on your calendar. We will have the neutral zone, and the speaker for the neutral zone, not a part of Louisiana, will be our supervisor, Linda Gill. Questions?
I went on Ancestry last night. They say if you want to go to 1940, punch years, okay, do that. I never got to anything.
Well,
Right?
there's a reason for that. If you look on their first splash page,
Yeah.
there's a listing there of all the states they're working on, and it'll tell you the ones that are complete and the ones that are not.
You mean read fine print, if you could see it.
And I'm going to make 2 statements on the Ancestry. If you have Ancestry at home, it's an individual subscription, so it's personalized. But here in the library system, anytime you go into Ancestry.com, it is a library edition. So what you see as the description of the states, we had to read it, of course, in, of course, we have to read the screen because we have trainers that tell us read the screen. So we are reading the screen. So that's how we had to find out about the 5 states. And so, sure, we still have really a few minutes.
I think it's in Heritage Quest that I saw this, but when I looked for the census information in the 1930s, it comes up as a partial.
Yes.
Is that ever going to be fixed?
Okay, in Heritage Quest, they like I said, don't count them out. They're not fast movers, but they have more of 1930 than they ever have. But they're close to being finished. I think they're minus maybe 6 or 7 states, but they have to keep the word partial because it's not completed. In their mind, they're very meticulous about what they do. Heritage Quest. So when you go in that section, it says what's new on Heritage Quest, you can go in and see what states are there. Okay? Yes. Yes. And we're going to encourage you also. We have our handout for our upcoming beginning. Every year we do a how to begin in 3 parts: June, July, and August. The first one, we try to give you the natural how to really begin from the beginning. And even if you're an advancer, we still invite you over because sometimes you teach us something as well as we share with you. Second part, we talk a lot about preservation. And in the third part, we talk about computer genealogy. But then, those of you that have completed all 3, we invite you to a sit-down, hands-on, and you will be able to sit at a PC, which we will set up a classroom style in here, and we will teach, and we will do it all together. So hopefully the 1940 will be better moving by then. August, I mean, hey, we can hope. Sure. You're not hogging the question. Anybody else have questions? We have a couple minutes.
I have a question about the enumeration district. Is it your opinion that as stuff progresses, that it won't be just the cities that will be outlined with the grid showing the individual pieces, but also the outlying areas, the farmland, you know?
Every enumerator that went out to do the census had to name a district. So if they did the outer line area, there is a grid. You don't have to go to the city. I went to the city because I thought really you would like to see a parish and a city. I didn't have to put the city. I could just show St. Landry in its entirety and see what happened. I didn't think to do that, though. You know, but you can. And the good part about having a PC is that you can play. You can really play. You can really just, like you did with 30. I know when we got to 30, everybody didn't just go to one thing and call it a day. No. we were really, So are there any other questions? I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation that Paula and I did. We always, it is always our joy to serve you every day. Don't let nobody tell you that we don't. We take great joy in what we do. So if there are no other questions, there are refreshments in the back. And if you want to see us, Danielle's at the desk. And Paula and I are in here. Pick our brains, if you will. Oh, thank you.